Welcome to the Wolff New Venture Competition. My name's Tim Folta, and I'm the faculty director of the Connecticut Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation, the organization hosting this event. So today we're going to observe 5 entrepreneurial teams competing for the Wolff Prize, which comes with $15,000. Let me tell you a little bit about how these 5 teams got here. They were judged to be the top teams out of 10 in our summer fellowship program. And the summer fellowship aims to select the top UConn high-impact early-stage ventures. These 10 teams get 7 weeks of training, inspiration, and mentorship from Michele Cody and her team Jen Murphy, Mario Late, and Scott Droz. They also receive $15,000 to advance their concepts, and 10 hours of professional services from our generous sponsors, Updike, Kelly and Spellacy, Fiandella, Malone, and La Saracina. We just completed the 2nd year of the fellowship, and we're quite excited about the quality of the participants, the diversity which they represent, our ability to attract teams from across the university, and the progress they make during the program. These 5 teams that you're going to see today have certainly distinguished themselves this year. And although I don't want to put any pressure on the presenters this year, I think you'll agree, having seen them, that they're quite impressive. So before I introduce 2 distinguished administrators who want to extend their own welcome to you, let me leave you with 2 entrepreneurial lessons. As a professor who teaches entrepreneurship, I'm sometimes asked, how is it possible to teach this subject? An article in the most recent issue of The Economist described some research that tried to get at this particular question. So they randomly assigned small businesses to one of 3 groups of 500. One group served as the control. Another received conventional business training in subjects such as accounting, finance, marketing, and human resources. And a final group was given a course designed to teach personal initiative. Things like setting goals, dealing with feedback, and persistence in the face of setbacks. The very things we teach in our summer fellowship program. So the last group performed well relative to the control group. Sales rose by 17%, profits rose by 30%. It also boosted innovation because recipients came up with more new products than the control group. This suggests that entrepreneurship can indeed be taught. Now, the second group did not perform differently than the control group, and that's a different question. That's a different discussion entirely. So the second lesson is from Thomas Wolff, and it happens to be quite related to the first lesson. So Thomas John Wolff and Bette Wolff and her family have generously provided the endowment to support this competition, the professorial chair that I hold, and many other important contributions to UConn and to the state of Connecticut. So I want to acknowledge Greg Wolff, and his brother Gary was supposed to be here, but he's not. So Greg Wolff in the audience for... So Tom, their dad, made quite a name for himself in insurance. And Greg told me just a few weeks ago, the first time he was on the road with his dad, ready to visit a prospective client. Before he left the car in Greg's presence, Greg was shocked to hear Tom scream 3 times. Be enthusiastic and act it. Be enthusiastic and act it. Be enthusiastic and act it. And he clapped his hands just like that, I'm told. And so when asked what he was doing, Tom said he was making himself enthusiastic. So the client would be more likely to buy life insurance from him. So Greg and Gary both report that he always told them, and anyone else who would listen, that enthusiasm is one of the highest paid qualities on earth. Certainly, entrepreneurial passion has a similar effect on potential investors, employees, customers, and judges. And I'm sure this is going to be one of the qualities our judges will attend to today. So without further ado, let me invite Provost Jeremy Teitelbaum to say a few words. And Jeremy stepped into this role in February of 2017. Prior to that, he was Dean of UConn's College of Arts and Sciences for 8 years, and he earned a PhD in mathematics from Harvard. So, thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you, Tim and Michele, for inviting me and for organizing this great event. It was interesting listening to Tim, to hear him talk about persistence. I don't know how many of you followed the debate about the Common Core in mathematics education, but one of the principles of the Common Core had to do with what are called practices in mathematics. And one of the practices which people are supposed to learn in their mathematics education from a young age is persistence in the face of difficulty. So I can certainly applaud that as a value that we can all stand by. Mainly, I am here to extend my thanks on behalf of the entire university to the Wolffs for their support of this program, to the judges who are here to volunteer in service of a higher cause, and to congratulate and cheer on and wish the best for the competitors who represent a wide range of programs across the university and who represent the intellectual power that comes from the combination of committed students and talented mentors and a few good ideas. And in the middle of a statewide debate on the importance of a research university to economic development in Connecticut and to the country as a whole, this kind of innovative thinking and teamwork is something that I think we can all look to with pride. So thank you once again, and good luck, you guys.
Okay, Radenka Merrick is Vice President for Research, stepping into her role in July 2017. Prior to this, she served as Executive Director of the Innovation Partnership Building, as a named professor in sustainable energy in the Department of Chemical and Biomolecular Engineering and the Department of Materials Science and Engineering.
Thank you, Tim. It's a great pleasure to be with all of you today. I want to thank our panel for reviewing all the proposals. I want to acknowledge our candidates, all hardworking faculties, and all our staff that provides support for them. Each of the team that is competing today and presenting has been benefiting from the programs that we have at UConn. And one of those programs has been one that Michele had been successful in leading, NSFI Core Accelerate program. So I was one of the participants early on, and I learned a lot from that program. So the teams that are competing today are in the broad range of the disciplines from the medicine, cell, molecular biology, engineering, and School of Business and Material Science and Oncology. So that shows how diverse is our research portfolio at UConn. Our Office of Vice President of Research provides significant support in the technology transferring through the IPs. Donna is in the room and a few of other people. Mustafa takes them through development of the business plan, marketing, how to approach venture capital, how to enhance. We are looking what is the next, how to help the small companies to be more successful with SBR, STTR. Jeremy shared his lessons learned as a mathematician. I can share my lesson learned as an industry person who in 40s decided to be a teacher and come to the classrooms. And I says, I truly believe in the young generations and what we teach the students. And the word is on the next generation, so we have to pass a torch. So my objective was to pass a torch from the large companies that I work for, from the small companies that I worked, and each of them has different pains, but completely different pain is entrepreneur. And what I learned by starting the company as a UConn faculty, there is so many pains that you can indulge and still be happy. So stay persistent, work hard, and success is just a matter of time. Thank you all.
Okay. Michele Cody is Managing Director of CCEI, and I could not be more pleased to have her on my team. Recently, Michele has played a leading role in securing the City of Hartford an Innovation Places grant. And one of her many roles at CCEI is running the Summer Fellowship Program. And she's going to help us transition to the team presentations now. So thank you.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. As Tim mentioned, one of the best parts of my job is actually getting to spend a lot of time with both aspiring student and faculty entrepreneurs on campus. And the folks that you are going to hear from this afternoon come from all corners of the university. And they've demonstrated extraordinary commitment over at least the last year working with me in programs such as Accelerate UConn and the CCEI Summer Fellowship. They are the top 5 teams to come out of a broad range of teams that participate in those programs from across the university. And they also happen to be tackling incredibly important challenges that are facing us all as popular society. The folks that you're going to hear from this afternoon are doing things like developing innovations that can prevent pregnancy loss and preterm birth, helping to ensure the safety of new drugs that are being developed by pharmaceutical companies across the country, providing physicians with better tools in the treatment of cancer, diabetes, and cardiac arrest, and removing barriers to the production of renewable natural gas. I think you'll all agree that this is really, really important stuff, and I'm so, so proud of them. So we'll be hearing from each of them in a minute, but first I wanted to orient you about how the rest of this afternoon is going to work. Each of them will come up to the podium. They'll have 10 minutes to make their presentation of their technology and their business model. Following that presentation, we'll open it up to questions from our judges for about another 7 to 10 minutes, and we'll make our way through all 5. After that is done, the judges are going to have the tough decision, a very tough decision to make in about 20 minutes, right? So take notes, and I hope you're prepared for that challenge. Then we'll come back together at 6 o'clock for an announcement of the 2017 Wolff New Venture Competition winner. So my last little bit of business is to introduce and thank all 5 of our judges for being here. I was prepping the teams for these presentations, and I was saying, these guys know what it takes to launch a new venture across lots of different disciplines, and we're so, so pleased that you decided to spend the afternoon with us. So from my right, we'll just go down the table. If you might just want to acknowledge or be recognized, that'd be great. So we'll start off with Matt McCooey, who is CEO of Connecticut Innovations, Connecticut's strategic venture capital arm. Susan Froschauer, President and CEO of CURE, Connecticut's Bioscience Innovation Network. Konstantin Drakonikis, he's partner at Launch Capital, and he's also Chief Strategy Officer of Amazon Technologies, was a UConn spinout. Marianne Rook, who's Executive Director of Crossroads Venture Group, and she's also the fund manager of UConn's brand new innovation fund. And finally, Kevin Booley, one of the most active UConn alum that I know. He's an angel investor, and he's also the president and CEO of NERAC, a market strategy and research firm right here in Tolland, Connecticut. Thank you all for being here. One more round of applause for these guys. All right. So are you ready to hear from all of our contestants this afternoon? Yeah?
Yeah.
Awesome. Let's get started. So first up is Dr. Courtney Townsell. She's a board-certified obstetrician and gynecologist at UConn Health. And she's also a third year and final year, with exclamation points, maternal and fetal medicine fellow. Come on up, Courtney.
Good afternoon, everyone. Again, I'm Courtney Townsell, CEO of NaturSure. My company has a medical device that is non-invasive and helps to prevent preterm birth and fetal loss. So a little bit about the background. In the United States annually, there are 4 million deliveries each year. 1 in 10 of those deliveries occurs prior to 37 weeks. These are called preterm births. Now, there are many causes of preterm births, but we'll focus on one of the preventable causes, cervical insufficiency. The diagnosis of cervical insufficiency occurs when the weight of the pregnancy puts pressure on the cervix, causing it to open up prematurely. If that happens prior to 23 weeks, the pregnancy ends in a fetal loss or miscarriage. If that happens after 23 weeks or viability, the pregnancy ends in a preterm birth, and it comes with all the consequences of that. The only treatment for cervical insufficiency at this point is a surgical procedure called a cervical cerclage. And there's many problems with this procedure. First off, this procedure was first invented in the 1950s and has not changed since that time. For this procedure, patients have to go to the operating room, undergo anesthesia, and subject themselves to the anxiety of the risks of this procedure. To perform this procedure, a suture material and a needle have to be placed through the tissue to tighten the cervix and support the pregnancy. Now, as you can imagine, this could lead to significant bleeding, infection, even breaking the water around the pregnancy, which could all lead to fetal loss and preterm birth. Additionally, there could be injury to surrounding structures. When I talk to patients who've had this procedure performed, several of them have said they wish that there was a non-invasive option that could minimize their risk and the risk to their pregnancy. They want to avoid another pregnancy like the one they had before, and they want to decrease the time that their infants have to stay in the neonatal intensive care unit. Physicians who perform this procedure want an option that's safe and equally efficacious as the surgical procedure, an option that can be used near viability, or that 23-week period, and something that's easy to place and easy to remove. Well, NaturSure has that solution. We offer a medical device that's single-use, handheld, can be placed the same day of diagnosis in an outpatient setting without anesthesia. It's made of soft plastic, and essentially the device deploys an adjustable encircling suture that allows tightening and prevents backward motion of the suture material. There's also an apparatus on the suture that allows for removal at the end of the pregnancy for a term delivery. Now, in terms of the competitors, as I mentioned before, the only option for women with cervical insufficiency is a cervical cerclage, the surgical procedure. On the market currently are medications that can be used for women with preterm birth. The issue is that these do not address the issue of cervical insufficiency. Vaginal progesterone and intramuscular progesterone are both medications that women use, and when they fail these medications, their only option is a cervical cerclage. The vaginal pessary is another device on the market, but it's still not used for women with cervical insufficiency, and it's not FDA approved. So again, we're left with one option that's obsolete, old, and has several risks. The NaturSure device is cheaper, can be used over a longer period of time during the pregnancy, and really minimizes the risk of surgery. In terms of market size, the total cost of preterm birth in the United States is $26 billion a year. Cervical insufficiency accounts for 10% of preventable preterm births, and accounts for $2.6 billion of that market. And the population of Connecticut is a little less than 1% of the country, so that accounts to about $20 million. In order to reach the milestones that we have set for our company, over the next year and a half, we've established several points. The first of which is to apply for an FDA application, We do not have a predicate device for this device, and so we've contacted the FDA and will be applying for a classification. The next step is to build and print our prototype and the pelvic models to do preclinical trials. We have a 3D design for both, and we are working with the store's library to print that on the 3D printer. We have a provisional patent for this device and plan to file a full patent by February of next year. Following that, we'll continue testing on our models and plan to finalize our minimal viable product by next September, with the hope to continue to engage partners and obtain a licensing agreement by 2019 February. So in terms of getting to market, again, we plan to license our device out to a partner. That will generate some upfront revenue, as well as royalties for end units sold later down the line. Through this partnership, we'll go through the FDA process, which we anticipate will take at least 5 to 7 years. We'll lean on our partners to help with production and distribution, and we'll assist our partners with discussions with procurement and purchasing committees who are integral in deciding which devices and medical equipment are purchased for hospitals and physician offices. Once this device is available for obstetricians and gynecologists, it can be deployed in women who are at risk for preterm birth. Now, I've spoken with insurance companies, and the billing and coding already exist for this procedure to be done as an outpatient. So where are we currently? In order to meet the 1.5 year milestones that we have designated for this company, it's going to take some funding. For the preclinical funding, we anticipate $22,000 for the prototype, the pelvic models, FDA applications, legalization, and conferences. Ultimately, preclinical costs are estimated at $44,500. We've currently generated about $30,000. So that leaves us a deficit of almost $14,000. We understand that this is just the preclinical trials, and there'll need to be human trials, clinical trials, to come later, and we hope to attain those with our partners. In addition to the funding, we plan to apply for grants such as SPARK and CBIF. We need additional support from FDA liaisons, ongoing legal and engineering support for our prototype as well as our pelvic models. And we hope to continue to engage partners in the community for partnerships in the future. In terms of our team, again, I'm Dr. Courtney Townsell, a board-certified OBGYN and MFM fellow here at UConn. We have Dr. Winston Campbell to the right. He's my MFM fellowship director, a well-known and trusted obstetrician with over 100 publications in the field of obstetrics. Wendy Davis, she's our industry mentor and CEO of Guest Vision. Lavina Tang, she's a Master's of Business Analytics student here at UConn. And our doctoral student, Gautam Yanduri, who's helping us with our engineering support. Thank you for your time.
Courtney, great presentation. I was wondering, in terms of market sizing, you talked about dollar volumes. I was wondering if in your research you had identified the number of surgeries that were performed preterm that would be candidates instead for your medical device.
So in terms of the surgeries and speaking with physicians, I think there's two ways to look at this. You can look at the actual volume of surgeries performed per year, and if you look nationwide, those are on the decline, secondary to the risk of the procedure. I think if physicians had options that were less invasive, you would see this performed much more often. So in times where the procedure, initially came out, I would say maybe in one hospital you might have 5 to 10 of those procedures performed in a month's time. And now it's less frequent just because patients are concerned about the risks.
Can I just follow up on that?
Yeah.
Do you know what the market volume in terms of cases are outside of the U.S.?
Outside of the U.S., so the issue is availability of anesthesia and certain services like that. So in low income or underdeveloped nations, it's just not available. I think this is something that can be used in those settings to help those patients.
Nice presentation, thank you. So my question has to do with sort of the simple brilliance of this solution, and wondering whether or not you think your pioneering in this area now will open up floodgates for lots and lots of competition, and whether or not you think you've got a significant patent position so that workarounds are not going to be that easy.
Right. So that's something that we're certainly concerned about. And looking at other options on the market, no one's come up with this yet. Certainly someone could try to circumvent us, but I think working with partners and trying to move as quickly as possible to get to market is important. There's some other applications that this device will have in addition, so I think that will also be helpful to get those studies out pretty quickly.
Could you share with us a little bit about, you just said working with partners. Give us your vision of who and where you'd be working with partners, who they would be.
Yeah, so I envision that we will take this company up until the point where we have established that it can deploy, it can remove, we can remove it easily. We have, described the pressure that it exerts on the cervix. And then at that point, I've been in contact with people from Cooper Surgical, from Beakley Medical. These entities would take on the device at that point. I could help them walk through a clinical trial, a multi-center trial at that point, to test the efficacy of this device versus other placebo and the surgical procedure.
And are the partners you've identified, are they, or there are others maybe who you haven't talked to yet, are they interested in this category? Is this a medical device that they think is a promising market opportunity? And what's been their reaction? What do you think the reaction will be of the folks who are today making the cervical, I can't remember how you mentioned it.
Cervical cerclash. So specifically when I spoke with members at Cooper Surgical, this is a field, women's health, that they have kind of cornered. They are the sort of leading group that works with providers who use devices and other instruments in the office and in the hospital for women's health. So they're very interested in the device, and it's just a matter of how far I want to take it personally before I sort of hand it off. They just wanted to see a more clear business model, and that was a year ago. I think we're much clearer now. And I just want to take it a little bit further myself to ensure that it's working, if it's going to have my name on it, before we take it to the next step.
One of the hallmarks of the Accelerate UConn CCEI Summer Fellowship Program is the requirement that you meet with, interview, and obtain firsthand evidence from prospective customers and clinicians about the interest in this particular product. What did that research tell you?
So as I mentioned earlier, I met with several patients who had the procedure done, and even physicians who performed the procedure, and many people just, especially the patients, were afraid to undergo the procedure, but really understood this is all they had. And so faced with the decision of keeping the pregnancy or losing the pregnancy, a lot of women will undergo the procedure, but they wish that there was something else that they could do. That was the sentiment that I got from women. In terms of physicians, many were interested in the data, wanted to know the efficacy, and wanted to be sure that it was going to work equally as the standard. And if we could support that and show that, then they would be willing to try it.
Yeah, just one last question. Sure. Thanks. So that was a little, it was a little vague for me just in terms of the regulatory plan. Mm-hmm. I know nothing about the space, but I would think that, sort of a surgical device, even though it's sort of an active intervention, it would still maybe fall under
Class
the 510K?
Yeah, it will.
Okay.
I mean,
So,
I don't have any question that it won't, but
Yeah.
I just have to go through that application process.
Got it. Yeah, so when I was looking at your timeline of 5 to 7 years, that, I don't
Maybe
know if
a
that
little
was.
short.
Yeah, okay. So just a comment, maybe.
Yes.
Yeah, you got it, okay.
Good question.
Thank you.
All right. Our next presenter is Corey Aker. He's a research associate here at the University of Connecticut in the Center for Cell Analysis and Modeling at UConn Health Center.
Good afternoon. My name is Corey Aker. I'm a co-founder of Potentiometric Probes, and we design fast, sensitive, voltage-sensitive dyes for research and drug development. Voltage-sensitive dyes make cells, tissues, or whole organs light up. And by light up, I'm referring to fluorescence, like these fluorescent vials here. So basically, they convert the changes in voltage inside cells to visible changes in fluorescence that you can measure with cameras or microscopes. So potentiometric literally means measure voltage. So if you were to look inside somebody's head, to look at their brain or look at their heart, you're not going to see the electrical activity that's taking place. But here's a look at a beating heart inside a live rat that's on an operating table. The heart was stained with one of our voltage-sensitive dyes. So on the left, good, okay. So on the left, you see now with the voltage-sensitive dye, you can actually see the electrical activity that corresponds to a normal heartbeat propagating across the heart. So this is a regular heartbeat, but you could also use the same tool, of course, to spot irregular arrhythmias. Now, voltage-sensitive dyes, they're widespread in neuroscience labs and cardiac labs. And there's demand for these dyes. So these researchers contact us directly on a regular basis to get the dyes. But what I'm going to talk about today is how we want to use our brand new business to capture this revenue stream. Not only that, but we're going to look ahead to a brand new market, which we believe is much bigger. So the new market that we're talking about is here. It's one we learned about during Accelerate UConn. So we had no idea this existed before. And it's essentially a new market in the pharma industry. So we found out that pharma companies are continually testing their drugs for cardiac safety, and they're using voltage-sensitive dyes. But what's happening is right now they're reinventing the way that they do this. So the new paradigm is called CIPA. It stands for the Comprehensive In Vitro Pro-Arrhythmia Assay. And the idea is to prevent drug side effects that cause arrhythmias or heart attacks. So this is preclinical testing on cells, so the dyes don't need to be FDA approved. And importantly, it applies to every new drug that's out there. It could be anything from allergies to cancer therapies. All of that has to go through cardiac safety screening. It's spearheaded by the FDA, and the adoption is just starting now. Here's a look at the protocol. So you see some cells here. These are human cardiac cells in a dish. They're stained with one of our voltage-sensitive dyes. And below that, you see the changes in fluorescence. So you see these fast spikes. They're less than a second in duration, so they're fast spikes. But this is the natural signal that causes your heart to beat. So drug companies can essentially look at these spikes, apply their drugs, and make sure there's no change in the shape of these spikes. So this is taking over from the current approach, which is much more convoluted. They don't use real cardiac cells. There's no fast spiking. And so they can use slow voltage sensitive dyes, but none of that's going to work now that they're shifting to this more realistic assay. So to do a good job with this voltage sensitive dyes now have to be fast and sensitive. Our dyes have always been fast, and recently we've just been working on making them more sensitive. Okay, so to estimate the total potential market for CIPA dye, you would have to ask yourself how many compounds are going to be tested by pharma companies. Okay, so I'm showing here a diagram of high throughput drug screening where pharma companies start with libraries of 100,000 compounds or more. So that's what they start screening. The safety studies are down the funnel here, but before they get to clinical trials. So we estimated that a pharma company might test 1,000 compounds at this level in order to get to around 20 clinical candidates. So the total market would be the total number of compounds, again, for all targets by all companies, multiplied by the price that we could produce a voltage dye assay kit good for one compound. So we've estimated 40,000 compounds per year, and we could do a kit for $250, which makes the total potential market $10 million per year. So we believe that the CIPA protocol is far superior, and it's going to be mandatory very soon. we hope to use our technology to capture the majority of this $10 million market. And we actually have two different dye technologies that could capture this market. We have electrochromic dyes, which were patented in 2015, and we have a brand new dye technology that we're still working on, which we hope to patent next year, which already shows far superior sensitivity. So here's a timeline of what we're hoping to achieve with the business. Here we are today. We just started the business this summer. We already sold dye, $3,000 of dye to Thermo Fisher this month. So that's because there's demand for our dyes already. So we're on track for $30,000 per year in sales. We applied for 2 SBIR phase 1 protocols. So the next milestone is hopefully the start of the phase 1 funding, which would give us the money to finish testing the dyes and designing the dyes. From there, we hope to move on to phase 2 funding, which is more substantial money. It's $1.5 million for 3 years. That's where we need to really ramp up testing of the dyes in partner labs, in third-party labs, and start focusing on SIPA-specific customer discovery. So that's $500,000 per year. Soon thereafter, we hope to start selling the new dye technology for SIPA. We have an advantage that the preliminary SIPA work is using our old dyes, so that gives us an advantage. As soon as we say, hey, listen, the new dyes are working, X times better, they will take our word for it. At that point, we need to focus on the website, advertising heavily, attending conferences, and actually acquiring SIPA customers. So the last milestone I want to talk about is when we hope to cross $1 million in dye sales per year. We'll have a big burden in terms of customer service, manufacturing, but I want to mention that this is not, the peak or plateau of dye sales. Like I said, we're hoping to capture most of the SIPA market. This is the point where sales should really be ramping up because, like I said, a SIPA is just starting to be adopted. So in 4 years' time, the adoption should be really in full swing, but not nearly finished. Okay, so now that I've talked about the revenues that we're aiming for, I just want to mention the factors that contribute to the expenses of this operation. So we've estimated the volume of dye that we would need to ship, the manufacturing batches per year, the number of shipments per year, and finally the total costs of just production by itself. And just notice that production costs are much less than the retail value of the dyes. Next, our team. So right now our team there's 2 of us who are switching to be part-time at the company, but we know we'll need to grow our team to make it to this $1 million milestone. Here's more details on that. So in terms of the team and the activities to reach this $1 million milestone, and we'll be making bi-weekly batches of dye, daily shipments. Of course, we can't do that ourselves. We need to add personnel to help us with that. We'll need good contacts in the farm industry. That's something we're lacking. We need to work with a marketing salesperson. In order to maintain customer service, we need a business operations manager. And the idea is that frees up our time to do what we do best, which is research and development into new dye technology. We're very thankful for $93,000 in startup funding so far from various state of Connecticut sources. We really feel that phase 1, phase 2 SBIR funding matches the timing and the funding level we need to capture the SIPA market. One early challenge we faced is with the phase 1 proposal, it's $225,000, but it's still hard to fit. It's hard to budget for an additional chemist. So I think with a Wolff award, that would let us pay for the things we need to pay for and free up more of this. Sorry, wrong button. It would help us free up more of this money to hopefully grow our team as soon as possible. But in general, we have the luxury that we have a revenue stream that we can use to fund the business. I want to introduce our team. Leslie Lowe is a professor at UConn, and he's a pioneer in voltage-sensitive dye technology with over 30 years of experience. Ping Yan is a chemist who has over 10 years of experience in dye design and synthesis. And I myself am a neuroscientist at UConn with experience in applying these technologies, and I've been making industry contacts over the past year. So I want to thank the judges, the Wolff family, and everybody that has supported us over the past year and a half. Thank you.
So Corey,
Yes.
Great presentation. I think I understood from one of the comments that you made, you've got a revenue stream in place already, royalties coming from Thermo Fisher Scientific?
We have, right, that's correct. So they pay us, I said, so they pay us up front, actually. They pay us 50% of what they sell.
And you discovered through the CCEI Summer Fellowship that perhaps, given the nature of that relationship, you were leaving some money on the table and were successful in renegotiating that arrangement?
We didn't. Yeah, no, that was this.
Let me ask. Okay. This is where I'm going with this. The market that you've developed is based upon a couple of assumptions. Mm-hmm. Delivering 40,000 units into the marketplace at a price point of $250. Mm-hmm. And I might ask the question: how elastic is that $250 unit price point? Because you could get to $1 million in half the time at $500 per unit.
Yeah, so
and while we don't want to go down the path of Milan, perhaps, and have an outrageously priced offering, right? There may be a little bit of experimentation that you could look at, given the nature of what you've got in the way of an offering.
Yeah, so that price point is based on the content in terms of voltage-sensitive dye, and so it's compared to prices for bulk voltage-sensitive dye right now. So I think we would be doing great at $250 per kit. It should be an easy to use thing that's convenient for them. It will deter them from wanting to buy bulk dye from somebody else and fiddling around with it to get it ready for their experiments. So the critical thing is that these guys are using these cardiac stem cells, which are incredibly expensive and delicate. So everything else should be easy to use. So that's why I thought about doing it in a kit that makes it easy for them to use.
Thank you. Nice presentation. You talked a little bit about the SIPA adoption over the next 4 years.
Yeah.
What risks are there that might not happen?
If it doesn't happen, it's already starting. Companies are already taking it upon themselves to test this way. So we have a relationship with a CRO in Scotland, and their business model is to do SIPA, and they're already getting business. So companies are already going in that direction. It's just that much better.
So that's a sure path, because that certainly affects what your timeline is for your revenue growth.
I'm just wondering what the other potential market applications may be for the dyes. Just thinking from a scale perspective.
Well, other market opportunities. I mean, we're starting with researchers, but if you look at the pharma industry, I mean, this is a special opportunity because you're talking about tens of thousands of compounds, because it's literally for every drug out there. But at the same time, there's pharma companies, of course, they're studying Alzheimer's, they're studying autism, and so these focused neuro studies are using voltage-sensitive dyes too. So I call those targeted studies, and I didn't really talk about that today.
So before pharmas start using your particular dyes in their validation screens, are you going to have to build a base of credibility? Do you envision that the regulators are going to have to say, this is the assay to use, these are the dye systems you have to use in order to provide us?
Yes, I think that's true. So we started that in November. We visited there was a SIPA workshop in Washington, and FDA is located in Washington. So we already went and visited their labs, and so they're actually using the same system that they're using in Scotland at the CRO that I mentioned, and they're actually using our older voltage sensitive dyes. So we already have really good connections with the FDA themselves. So we're in a good position in that respect.
You mentioned that you're working on another technology. Is that focused on the same market, or is this a different market that you would be?
No, that's the same. That's focused on the same market. So the interesting thing there is that if we hit a home run with these dyes, if they're incredibly sensitive, like we know they're incredibly sensitive, the trade-off might be how fast they are. But if we hit a home run, then they could cross back over into the neuro applications. Then they could actually replace the. They would be fantastic tools for neuroscience researchers.
So that 10 million market would be expanding.
I should have mentioned that the FDA wrote letters on our behalf for our SBIR applications. So that's going back to Susan's question.
So I grew up in the world of screening when a company called Cibia had very high-end dyes. And there was a revolt on the part of the pharma companies because of the exclusivity of them and the cost of them. And the whole debate then evolved into whether or not research tools are patentable. And I mean, it's very, very, it was very controversial at the time. And so I guess I'm wondering, your model is to make the dyes and then sell the dyes, and then these big pharmas are going to put your dyes in frontline screens and pay bazillions of dollars because they become addicted to them. Have you actually talked to a pharma about whether or not they're going to allow that addiction? And have you talked to them about whether or not a licensing model would be a better one, and that you could do it in a sort of these collaborations, and that they could help you with the development and the building of your outreach and validation?
I think we're actually helping them with their existing addiction because, so going back to your point, so they're doing this research right now, and they're actually buying kits of dye, this low voltage sensitive dye that's useless for SIPA. They're spending $10,000 at a time to buy these kits from Molecular Devices. So I think we can do it better for less. I think we'll help alleviate that. Was there a second part of your question?
No,
Okay.
I was just exploring how much you've
Yeah,
actually
no, I don't think
pressure tested this.
we're not going to try to corner anybody into spending bazillions of dollars. I think we're going to be able to do it for cheaper than what they're doing right now, and we should help them. In the end, we should be helping drug companies build safer drugs for less money. Okay.
Next up is Constantine Portola. He's a fifth-year PhD candidate in the Department of Mechanical Engineering. Interestingly enough for me, his research specializes in sickle cell disease.
Hi, how's it going? I'm Constantine Portola. As Michele mentioned, I'm a PhD candidate in the Department of Mechanical Engineering here in Storrs. And together with Professor Georgia Katrafidis, we founded Air Medical Devices, LLC, where we're working on the first point-of-care blood rheometer. So let me explain that very quickly. Blood rheology is the study of how viscous the blood is, that is, how thick or thin it is, with the challenge that viscosity changes based on the flow conditions, basically how fast it's going. So this measurement is a powerful assessment of overall cardiac health. It's very strongly correlated with cardiac events such as heart attack or stroke. It directly dictates how hard the heart has to pump in general, and it corresponds directly with the health of the endothelium. That's the lining of the blood vessels. So when the studies that showed us this were conducted, they used these traditional industrial rheometers that are at the cheapest $20,000. The one you see here, the same model we use to corroborate our results, is about $70,000. They're slow, they require a lot of sample, and frankly, you need an engineering background to make sure your results aren't 10, 100, or 1,000 times off. So, just want to mention here that at this time, this measurement, because of this cost and impracticality, is not being done at in the doctor's office whatsoever, because it's not cost efficient. The device we're creating will be swift. Results will be in about 5 minutes. It's going to be easy to use. It'll fit in the palm of your hand. It'll require just a finger prick of blood to get a full result. Physicians like that, they won't have to sterilize after every single use, and it'll be, at worst, a 20th of the price. So all of this adds up to be a point-of-care device, the same measurement we were just talking about, but in the doctor's office. So we've put together some mock-ups for you. On your right, you'll see the core device, which will manage and basically conduct the measurement. And on the left is the microchannel refillable cartridge. So one of these is necessary for every single measurement. The idea is to sell the core device for basically the cost of goods, and then to make a margin on the microchannel cartridge. The cartridges, I just want to point out, will be embossed with a magnetic strip or digitally marked to make sure that only our chips are being used with our device, and to also give the device certain information about the measurement to make it more accurate. So the way this works is a physician will set this core device down, put in the refillable cartridge, take a finger prick of blood from their patient, deposit it on the microchannel, and about a few minutes later, they'll have the full measurement. They can then deposit the cartridge in the sharps container they already have available in their office. So again, I want to underscore what a powerful measurement this is. There have been studies that shown that it is more strongly correlated with cardiac events than blood pressure, than habits such as smoking and drinking, and even LDL cholesterol. So with 75 million hypertensive patients in the United States who are at risk for a cardiac event, physicians can use this to, with much greater accuracy and clarity, figure out exactly who's at greater risk and dictate their treatment from there. It can also give physicians a glimpse into the workload the heart has to do, and give them a glimpse into the health of the endothelium, the lining of the blood vessels, like I mentioned, not something currently available at the point of care. Now, there's a number of other applications like diabetes and sports medicine, but two I want to point out right now is dialysis. Now, dialysis is the artificial replacement of kidney function. That's if someone's kidneys fail, physicians can filter the blood by hooking the patient up to one of these refrigerator-sized units. They're there once a week for half an hour. During a custom discovery process, we found a number of physicians who believe they can make this dialysis treatment more efficient, and that is faster and safer, so that their facility can see more patients on a regular basis. I also want to point out hyperviscosity syndrome. This is a syndrome that's in the United States mostly caused by a cancer called Waldenstrom's macroglobulinemia. This particular cancer makes the blood so extremely viscous that because of this high viscosity, patients suffer from terrible symptoms like loss of eyesight, coma, and even death. We believe physicians will be able to use our technology to very quickly get a clear picture of where their patient's blood viscosity is at. And we believe our earliest adopters will be oncologists who specialize in WM. So all this boils down to the following market opportunities. We know that the cardiac medical device market is represented by $33 billion of annual revenue. We believe we can serve $2 billion of annual revenue. We envision this device to be in every doctor's office at the end of the day. We think this can become part of a total physical checkup. Our target market, who will be targeting the first 5 years on the market, is just the specialists who can use this, such as cardiologists and dialysis facilities. They represent about $500 million of annual revenue. And finally, our earliest adopters, who we target in the first 2 years on the market, oncologists who specialize in WM, represent about $5 million of annual revenue. So there's a couple of labs in the United States that say, hey, ship us your blood. We've got our engineer on staff. He's got a rheometer. We'll have him do the test, and we'll email you the results. Now, there's a couple problems with this procedure. First of all, if the blood's been out of the body for more than a day, the result changes drastically. And second of all, unless they're shipping a blood clot, they've diluted the sample with anticoagulants, and that also directly changes the measurement. This procedure will really compete with traditional risk evaluations, such as blood pressure, cholesterol, diet, habits like smoking and drinking. But I just want to emphasize here that combined with these traditional measurements, physicians will have access to a much higher level of detail about the risk of their patient is facing. Finally, there's a number of biomarkers physicians used to test for cardiac events right before surgery. So these are very short-term tests. Blood viscosity has been shown to be an indicator of risk over a course of more than 5 years. The latest study I've seen showed it over a period of 19 years. So progress thus far, together with the UConn Tech Commercialization Services, we've filed the provisional patent application. We'll be working with them in the fall on the full patent application. We've put together this initial prototype. Now this is already a tenth of the cost of the cheapest rheometer, and with it we've gotten some preliminary results that match the traditional rheometer. You can see on the bottom there, that's basically the flow speed. And on the y-axis is the viscosity itself of some black ink. So we'll be working to improve that, but it is already extremely close relative to the error it could have gotten. So as I mentioned before, if you don't know what you're doing with a traditional rheometer, it could be orders of magnitude off. So moving forward, we'll be focusing on publishing in a scientific journal about the efficacy of the device and bringing it to extreme high accuracy. We've got a laundry list of engineering concerns we have to take care of, and we'll be attempting to manufacture a number of prototypes and setting up an early facility to produce more of these cartridges. During that time, we'll be focusing on fundraising for major funds like an SBIR and CBIF, and we'll be also working on the full patent application. After that, we're looking at the FDA approval process. Early estimates give us about 5 years as a Class 1 low-risk device, and about $3 million. We, however, are not entirely confident with that information, so we're looking for a specialist to help guide us, or a group of specialists to help guide us through the FDA approval process. Well, once we're on the market, we'll be publishing journal publications. A lot of physicians have told us they want to see us reproduce those correlations and those results using our device. And we'll also focus on oncologists who treat WM, because in the medical device industry, it's very important to have early adopters, and we believe they have something more of a need than the rest of the markets. So I have some preliminary numbers for customer acquisition costs and annual customer value there. So this all boils down to approximately $3.5 million over 5 years that we need. We're also looking, as I mentioned, for a group to help consult us with the FDA approval process, as well as the insurance regulatory matters. Finally, when we're closer to being on the market, we'll be looking for someone to help incorporate this device into the existing electronic medical records. So I'd like to go over our team. I'm Constantine Portola, as I mentioned. I'm a PhD candidate in Mechanical Engineering Department. I have a publication studying sickle cell disease using microchannels, which are the core foundation of this device. I also have a publication in data processing. Professor Georgia Katrafidis is an associate professor in the departments of mechanical engineering and biomedical engineering. He has extensive experience in both of these fields, and brings a lot of expert knowledge about certain components of this device. He and I invented this device together. We felt we needed to bring someone in who's done this before, so just recently our longtime associate Thomas Gear has joined us in this venture. He's an entrepreneur and founder of Nobska Imaging. He has over 13 years in the medical device market. And finally, we're being consulted by Dr. Brianda Merriam. She's the director of the New England Sickle Cell Institute at the UConn Health Center. She's a practicing hematologist, and we're using her extensive network in customer discovery. So thank you very much, and I'll be happy to answer your questions.
I get to go first because my name's Constantine too.
Yeah.
So this is actually the first time I've ever heard of blood viscosity being correlated to cardiac events, and
Yep.
so it's very interesting. I'm just wondering a little bit about your regulatory and clinical plan, and whether or not you can use like retrospective studies to get to some, I guess, market points, right, to actually prove that to your physicians and your market that this device, whether it be an at-home device or an office device, is something that can work.
Yeah, so there is already a device that claims as a viscometer or rheometer that it has FDA approval. The caveat here is that our technology is brand new, so it would have to go through some form of initial FDA approval as a Class 1 device no matter what. We will also have to reproduce clinical studies no matter what in order to gain the credibility necessary to sell at a mass scale.
So I love the idea of point-of-care devices. I love the idea of moving diagnostics into the doctor's office. But the real question is, does it work? Can you generate same or better results with that device in its miniaturized form, given what you've learned about the device thus far?
Yeah, So as you saw, we have matching results. Now, that prototype you saw is very quickly built to get results fast. There's a number of ranges there that we just took the median of and said, this is probably it, let's go with that data. As we work to add more sensors to it, we'll get much more accurate results, and we're completely confident that it does work, given this data.
And your adoption of the razor blades model, love that, right? I could just imagine what you could do with that in terms of your go-to-market strategy. Again, a lot of it depends on the engineering that you bring to miniaturization and the rollout plan that you have, but it looks remarkable even in just its present form.
Thank you.
What partnerships do you envision that you will begin to explore? Maybe you've already started exploring.
We envision exploring a partnership where someone else probably manufactures and puts together the core device. We are experts in microfluidics, so we expect to be operating our own facility to create the refills ourselves. We're still remaining flexible, so we're going to be looking at our options as we get closer to the FDA approval process.
So the company that's out there that's making the rheometer and viscometer today, do you have any idea how many tests they run per year and what they charge, just to get a sense of what the market is?
The ship out ones, I can't really get a sense. They don't release that real information, unfortunately. I suspect it's about a couple $100 to get the test done.
How many, what percentage of patients who, fit your population, what percentage of them get this test?
Because of its strength in assessing cardiac risk, we foresee that pretty much everyone will have this test done as part of the physical checkup when you go to a general practitioner.
Today?
Oh, today. Yeah, today it's almost non-existent. It's effectively non-existent.
So have you thought of ways of getting a package of data out and some early publication on your technology so that you can start early getting clinical credibility and feedback on what you're doing rather than having to get all the way to the FDA, get approval, start publishing later in the game?
Yeah, of course, and we're through a process of customer discovery or building a network to push that data forward as we get it. Right now we're focused on getting extreme accuracy in the device itself. But as soon as we have that, we can get started on acquiring clinical data that we can share.
One of the items you covered in your presentation was a dialysis process that it would make it more efficient. How would you do that, and how would the existing market look upon you as competitive, or would it be more complementary?
There's definitely competition there. There's a number of it's a product called Critline. They measure a certain protein, I believe. I'm not an expert in dialysis, but having spoken with a number of them, they've gone over with me. Basically, they'll be using the viscosity throughout the procedure to set a cutoff limit to say your treatment today is done. So sometimes it's they accidentally go over the allotted time, and the patient's blood gets filtrated a little too much, for example. So they believe they'll be able to use viscosity as another extra measure to see that they haven't gone over.
Constantine, as part of your funding strategy, you had mentioned SBIR.
Yep.
Have you begun to evaluate whether some of the opportunities for new product development in dialysis and or these diagnostics for cardiac treatment are well-founded and available to you?
I'm sorry, could you reiterate?
The SBIR opportunity for funding, have you been able to determine whether your treatment for dialysis or whether your treatment for cardiac diagnosis are those that would be well-founded and available to you?
Well, we'll be making them, right? What do you mean by well-founded? I'm sorry.
That SBIR is actually looking for that solution as part of their offering today.
Yeah, we've spoken with a number of people who've submitted and successfully gained an NSF SBIR, so we'll be shooting for that soon. We believe we have a very good chance there, given the data we have.
All right. right. Our next presenter is a second-year MBA student who responded to the challenge of exploring the market opportunity for a technology developed by Dr. Steve Sub from the Institute of Material Science.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dongyu, a second-year MBA student with engineering academic background and 9 years experience in natural gas pipeline operation in China, and a co-founder of quantum purification, which is commercializing a disruptive technology to remove hydrogen sulfide in gases. Considering the fast growth of biogas, we are bringing this technology into biogas industry. Biogas is a preliminary form of renewable natural gas and generated by bacteria breaking down organic waste in the absence of oxygen, better known as anaerobic digestion. Then biogas is treated by 3 steps: drying to remove water, conditioning to remove H2S, upgrading to remove CO2. Finally, renewable natural gas come out and can be used for electricity and heat, fuel, pipeline, and fuel cell, and also benefit the world by alternating the fossil natural gas, recycling organic waste, and reducing greenhouse gas. What are we diving into is conditioning to remove the hydrogen sulfide. But why is necessary? Because hydrogen sulfide will corrode the downstream facilities, turbine blades, pipelines, and super toxic to people, and emit SO2 after burning. It is predicted the global biogas market will value about $27 billion in 2017 and grow at 6.5 annually in upcoming 10 years. However, US market is growing much faster, about 20% to 25% annually. As a result, biogas conditioning niche will grow along with biogas industry. But this indispensable process is costly and high maintenance, and is an obstacle to this high fast rate industry. In the beginning, our target customer are those new and large-scale anaerobic digestion project owners who sell renewable natural gas to downstreams, and they are more sensitive to hydrogen sulfide concentration. Their jobs are outputting qualified renewable natural gas with less investment, operation cost, and labor time. But current conditioning solutions are both capital or labor intensive. Now, H2S removal methods can be classified to 3 categories: adsorbent, cheapest, and simplest, but generate lots of waste and need to change the adsorbent frequently. Biological, more capital and complicated, with little waste, but introduce oxygen, which is not favored by downstream users. Chemical, little waste, no oxygen, but most capital and complicated. Our solution employs adsorbent, UConn patented technology, mesoporous manganese oxide, transformed from manganese oxide, a common material, then embeds adsorbent to a cartridge, offering customer a simply structured filtration system by housing one or multi cartridges with H2S concentration sensor. The value proposition delivered to customers are removing hydrogen sulfide highly efficient, low cost in capital operation and maintenance, easy to operate and maintain, and no waste at the customer site. Here is what our advantages look like. Let me highlight, compared with other adsorbents, our solution greatly improves the adsorptive capacity. So our adsorbent can be used for much longer time. Therefore, and comparable capital cost, our solution perform more efficient, less operation cost, and no waste. Compared with biological and chemical waste, our solution can offer equivalent efficacy, but drastically lower the capital cost and save operation cost by regenerating adsorbent and easier maintenance. Now we already get R&D support from 2 labs of UConn. One is the Institute of Material Science, responsible for the adsorbent development. The other is Mechanical Engineering Department Combustion Lab, responsible for the filtration system. And upon the idea, these 4 customers already expressed their interest to be the first adopter. We will reach our customers through sales reps and engineering channels, additional with awareness factors such as conference, trade shows, and industry periodicals, and so forth. And to acquire customers, we will generate customer awareness by channels and factors, then follow up with customers with interest, provide free trials to those early adopters, offering promotion to early buyers. According to the forecast and 5% cost proportion of conditioning in the whole anaerobic digestion system, in 2018, we deemed global market as total market with size about $1.5 billion. US market as served market, about 10th of total market. Those large and new anaerobic digestion projects in US as target market, about 50% of SAM. And those well-educated customers who want to try new things in the target market as early adopters, about a quarter of target market. We estimated in startup we need about $60,000, primarily to develop the minimum viable product, or MVP, include lab testing and pilot on site. Turning to operation phase, the key activities will be mainly production, R&D, marketing, and sales. Total cost estimated to be 70% of the revenue, leaving 30% margin. Meanwhile, our revenue will be streamed from filtration system sales, regeneration service, replacement cartridge sales, and byproduct sales after regeneration. So far, we've accomplished some startup works, incorporated the LLC, get some R&D support and some potential customers, applied SBIR or NSF and got $13,000 from CCEI investment. In our projection, we will be in startup phase till June 2018. Activities will include getting IP license from UConn in the next 2 months, developing MVP and conducting pilot, continue marketing development, and work on SBIR fund and other private investment. From July 2018, we'll go into operation phase, spend a lot of money on marketing and production. We need about $330,000 in next half year. Hopefully we can get 3 orders in 2018 with $300,000 revenue. We aim for break even in 2019 and take 2% market share in 2020. In 2021, we want to take 4% market share in the United States and get $1 million net profit and step into other desaffiliation fields. At last, our team formation. Mike Curtis, Chief Strategy Officer of Quantum Biopower, entrepreneur, veteran in manufacturing and energy industry, with PhD on environmental engineering at UConn and accountable for team building, fundraising, and R&D. I'm responsible for marketing and operation. Brian Paganini, a UConn alumni as well, Vice President of Quantum Biopower and in charge of coordinating upcoming pilot. Jackie Song, a world-renowned expert on fuel quality at UConn ME department, takes charge of R&D on mechanical part of filtration system. In long term, we intend to introduce this promising technique into much broader markets: syngas, coal gas, natural gas, and potential liquid fuel desulfurization. UConn bridged us together, who has same vision, that is to convert UConn technology to valuable application and contribute to a cleaner and greener world. Thank you. I open for question.
Dong Yu, if I understand correctly, you've got a material that was invented and is available through Steve Sub from IMS, and your intent is to incorporate that in a filtration system.
Yes.
And then install that either downstream in an anaerobic digestion facility, and using that filtration system to remove hydrogen sulfide.
That's right.
Producing a cleaner fuel. So like the last presenter, there's a razor blades model here where the filter media can be repurposed and resold to the facility. I can understand the nature of the product and how you'd bring it to market. I don't understand how big the market is from what you shared. Can you revisit that for me, please?
Yes. According to my not very precise market research, I only can get some free information from the internet is total biogas industry market. And I estimated, according to some project, the conditioning system is take about 5% in capital, 5% in the whole anaerobic digestion system cost. So I calculate this market share, this market size according to this estimated data.
Right, and you had asserted earlier that this particular technique is far less expensive than that
Yes.
which those anaerobic digestion facilities are currently facing. They would be encouraged then to adopt this new technology?
We can say that technology will be cheap, will be far less expensive from the laboratory performance. But we need to know it. We need to verify it through the MVP pilot.
And you asserted that with as little as $60,000, you can build the MVP and test this.
Yes, we are. Right now, we think 60,000 more or less.
Thank you.
Could you describe the pilot that you mentioned you have a pilot program with GE?
Yes, GE just give me an order, not a promise. I think maybe by courtesy, a GE manager very interested in my idea, and he told me if I can develop a prototype, he would like to use it on their site by order. But we've already get a pilot promise from Quantum Biopower.
So I think it'd be very interesting, kind of pulling off of your line of questions, to look at your market size from a bottoms-up perspective and look at the number of biogas reactor facilities, and then basically determine how many pieces of equipment or industrial systems they would need to buy in order to meet their capacity flow, and then build in the razor blade piece as well, which is the material recharge, regeneration piece of this as well. Because your price point has to fit, in order to build a business, you have to be able to sell enough equipment, and then also, sell the material as well. So that'd be interesting to know.
Oh, I want to explain that the fourth stream of revenue is a byproduct after regeneration. That means we can get after regenerated used adsorbents, maybe element sulfur.
Could you give us an example of a business that you know of in this space that has has taken off and as sort of an analog to what you're doing and the success that they've had? Do you know of any companies that you'd be competing with, or that
You mean the competitors, right?
Yeah.
Yes, there are a bunch of competitors. Here I just list several competitors on behalf of different methods. For example, these MV technologies is just one company use the adsorbent method to produce the H2S filtration conditions.
How big is this business for them?
How many?
You know, how large what kind of revenues that this business generates for that company?
I have no idea of this.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Our fifth and final presenter this afternoon is Bette Kendro. She's a fourth-year PhD candidate in biomedical sciences at UConn Health.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Bette Kendro, and today I'm representing my team, Hans Health Incorporated. We are a biotechnology company focusing on personalized cancer diagnosis and therapy. More specifically, at HHI, we believe that the answer to treating cancer stands within patients' own immune system. So we have come up with a unique technology that identifies patients' immunogenic mutations and has the potential to generate anti-cancer vaccines and antibodies. For today's presentation, I'm going to be focusing on the first part of our technology, which focuses on identifying patients' immunogenic mutations. And before I explain the technology, I want to kind of give you a little bit of background on the existing problem in the field that we're trying to solve. So for that, I would like to introduce you to Dr. Stevenson, who is a breast cancer oncologist at University of Connecticut Health, and Mary, who is one of her recent patients diagnosed with breast cancer. Dr. Stevenson is aware that Mary is one of the 250,000 new cases that are being diagnosed in US alone every year. And so she's trying her best to help her patients. So for Mary, she's using not just the traditional diagnostic tools, but she's going beyond. She is also using molecular diagnostic tools that will help her understand what are the mutations that are driving Mary's cancer. In addition to that, she's trying to tailor to Mary her personalized or somewhat personalized therapy in order to achieve the better results for Mary. So part of that strategy is to recommend immunotherapy, which is the most recent and the most exciting therapies available in the field currently. And the way that these therapies work is by working on the patient's immune system, activating it so that these cells can then go and fight the cancer. Unfortunately, when it comes to Mary, Dr. Stevenson has to sort of take kind of like a trial and error approach to understand if Mary would be a good immunotherapy candidate. As Dr. Stevenson is aware, only 30 to 40% of the patients undergoing immunotherapy, as exciting as these treatments are, only 30 to 40% of the patients are responsive. So as you can understand, there are sort of a lot of implications here when it comes to Mary's health undergoing immunotherapy, when it comes to the cost that she will have to confront, as well as time and effort from Dr. Stevenson. So we believe that the way to breach this kind of gap is to understand how the immune system is responding of the patient towards their mutation. And unfortunately, this technology is currently absent. Okay, so the way that we are trying to solve this problem at HHI is by reading the patient's immune response against these mutations that are driving their cancer in a real-time fashion. So what I mean by that is we collect patients' blood samples and we incubate them with this specially designed diagnostic chip at HHI. Then we scan the chip, and at this point, we manually analyze the results to come up with a report. So the potential of this report, the results that are shown in this report, can help clinicians identify the candidates for immunotherapy, surveil their immune system as they're undertaking immunotherapy, and identify hopefully identify the right therapeutic dose that they should be taking. So going back to Dr. Stevenson, she would be receiving a report that sort of looks like this, where all of the mutations that are driving Mary's cancer are listed alongside with the FDA, the currently FDA-approved treatments for these mutations, as well as potential clinical trials that Mary can sign up for. And in addition to all this information, another layer of information that now tells us more about the immune system and how that is responding within Mary before she takes the treatment and potentially after she takes the treatment. Not only that, but basically this information can be used to more effectively determine if Mary is a good candidate for immunotherapy. And if she is, then how can Dr. Stevenson determine the right dose that she should be giving Mary to avoid any side effects? So as you can see, the technology that we are proposing is a non-invasive technology that has the potential to be accurate and determine fast how the immune system is responding. So in that sense, be time efficient and hopefully affordable for the patient. This same technology also has the potential for personalized therapy, and I'm not going to take too much time on this, but I wanted to mention that we're currently using this technology, and we have developed one, we have identified one antibody that we are currently testing in preclinical settings. So with all this said, we're hoping that this technology will eventually help increase the survival rate of cancer-diagnosed patients. So with that being said, switching gears now to the business aspect of our venture, and specifically to our business model. Initially, we want to go further in the future with our diagnostic tool, we seek out partnerships with biotechnology companies focusing on cancer diagnostics. And sort of like utilize that established network with clinicians and their agreements with insurance companies to get to physicians and their patients. In the near future, we're hoping to sort of follow the same path with the therapeutic elements, approach pharmaceutical companies that are working on cancer drug development, and eventually use their network to get to the clinicians. And maybe down the line, once we have raised enough capital, we're hoping to be the direct distributors for the therapeutic elements to the clinicians and their patients. And just to kind of give you an idea of the market size that we're trying to capture, looking at the diagnostic size of the market focusing on cancer, if we look at all cancer, all types of cancers, and the money that is spent on diagnosis, and mostly consisting of traditional diagnosis, we're looking at billions of dollars, up to $6.4 billion of dollars. And as we narrow down to what we think is going to be our early adopters, basically going from women diagnosed with cancer to women that are more prone to use some sort of molecular diagnosis, and potentially women with stage 4 or triple negative, basically more aggressive type of cancer, or both, we're looking at about $165 million. And to give you an idea of how much of that market are some of the biggest companies currently in the field capturing and converting to molecular diagnosis. You're looking at Foundation Medicine that brings in yearly revenue based on their 2016 reported revenue, about $150 million. Genomic Health, about $300 million, and Bristol Myers Squibb with their BRCA test, about $400 million. So just to kind of like give you an idea. So what we are planning on doing in the future, in our timeline, we're hoping that by May of 2018, we have kind of accomplished or reached out to these companies for potential partnership. But just to kind of go over what we have achieved so far and what we're hoping to achieve in the next months. We have already published 2 papers, peer-reviewed papers, using our technology, and we're working on the 3rd one. We just recently signed our licensing agreement with UConn, and we have established our provisional patent and have applied for SBIR and STTR grants. Going forward, by the end of this month, we're hoping to hold in our hands, we already ordered a Foundation Medicine specifically designed chip. which then by January we're hoping to hire a biostatistician that will help us generate an algorithm that will convert the manual part of our work into an automated process, and eventually apply for a full patent, including the algorithm. By March of 2018, we're hoping to have all the pieces together for launching our first kit, HHI diagnostic kit. And by April of 2018, we plan to get in contact with business development representatives in order to start the negotiation process or to see if they're interested in our venture. And throughout this process, we're going to be accumulating or acquiring human samples. We currently have available 50 samples, and we know that the biodepository at UConn has about 1,000 more, so we're basically going to be testing our technology throughout the time. So, like I said before, we're hoping to establish a partnership at the end of May with Foundation Medicine. We're going to approach them with a kit that looks sort of like this, that will contain a Foundation Medicine diagnostic chip, the automated analysis software, and as well as a protocol for the using instructions. And so the estimated costs for to take us until May 2018 are about $30,000 on the lower end to $53,000 on the higher end, with $17,000 being the lower end of like how much it would take us to have the first HHI kit. And this is how we eventually, if we're so lucky, hoping to use the Wolff money if we get it. So at this point, we're looking for financial support, more team members with potentially more business expertise, and expanding our networking connections, especially with potential partnership companies. And finally, just introduce our team, myself and Dr. Han, who is faculty at University of Connecticut Health for a few years now, and the founder of the company are the core members of the team, our distributors who help with the formulation of the chip, as well as the team of industrial and medical advisors. So on behalf of our team, we would like to leave you with a final message. We believe that the cure to cancer is closer than ever, and hopefully with your help, it's going to be available within the next couple of years. So with that said, I would like to thank you for your time, thank Accelerate UConn for the opportunity that it has given us. Thank you.
So, let's see. I guess one of the things would help me with, if I can recapitulate, what you're able to do is to track in real time evolution of different mutations in specific samples. And
yes,
your ability to do that allows you to understand whether or not a patient will be responsive to a particular regime of immunotherapy.
Yes.
Okay.
So
who are your competitors?
Yes. So just to edit that a little bit, what our technology allows us to do is to understand what mutations are going on in the patient, and how, most importantly, how is the immune system responding to these mutations. So that dynamic, understanding the dynamic, allows us to understand if this patient would be a good candidate for immunotherapy or not. Generally speaking, the patients that have some activation of the immune system tend to do better with, to respond better to different treatments, including immunotherapy. So as I mentioned, some of our competitors are well, I wouldn't want to say competitors because we kind of aim on collaborating with them, but the existing companies right now that are sort of doing any kind of understanding in a molecular level are mostly Foundation Medicine and Genentech. And like I said before, they're bringing in about $150 million and about $300 million. Our goal is to approach Foundation Medicine because their business model is the closest one to what we are suggesting. So we think that we will have the highest chances of being adopted by what they're already doing by their technology.
So this is just maybe a little bit more granular. So can you describe what in your testing regime is kind of, I mean, without getting like fully into it, but what's really proprietary and different about it, other than just being a manual process that you need to put into an algorithm?
We have different chips. Diagnostic chip is currently available. You know, the list of genes that we are testing with that chip is basically currently available. But what we are doing, in addition to what I described with the diagnostic chip, have the ability to, based on each individual patient, to design personalized chips, and that is also proprietary because it's based on each individual patient. But what I think it's most worth of everything is the algorithm that we want to put together, because that will allow the analysis, an algorithm which basically doesn't exist in the market. That would allow the automatic analysis of the results, and then kind of like do an automatic scoring, determining who is and who is not a good immunotherapy candidate.
And is that something that you think you can put IP around?
Yes, that's our understanding at this point, yes.
Is the IP related to biomarker algorithms?
What do you mean by that?
So the algorithms that you're using are based on analysis of biomarkers?
So we currently do not have an algorithm. We want to, that's in our plan. We want to develop that as soon as we gather enough number of samples that we have tested.
Okay, helpful. So the premise then is that the adoption of this particular technique and technology reduces the trial and error approach presently in use?
Yes.
And that the improvement in the identification of those who are more receptive to the immunotherapies will improve the outcomes, patient outcomes, in terms of the cancer treatment.
Absolutely. Not only that, oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were done.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay, so not only that, but in addition, this technology has the potential to, in the future, be able to determine if a patient has or has not cancer at all, and it can be applied beyond just cancer cases. Breast cancer cases, sorry.
Okay, and your go-to-market approach near term is to meet with or to approach Foundation Medicine today, who's delivering product into the marketplace with your technology as a prospective improvement to theirs.
Yes.
Thank you.
So how do you know they're not going to beat you out of doing this?
Well, we're hoping to have the IP by then, so the full IP by then, so that won't allow them to basically get this technology and apply it without us as being partners.
Another quick question. BioRay, as you're probably aware, has been working for some time on being able to use algorithms to propose the best approach for therapeutics, not immunotherapeutics, but cancer therapeutics in general. Do you think any of their algorithms might be something you might access to or collaborate on to sort of jumpstart rather than having to start from the beginning?
So you're saying to use their algorithms to help analyze the samples that we are testing, right? I don't think that would work. I don't think that would work because this is a specific, maybe, I mean, I would have to consult with a biostatistician, but I personally don't think it would work because the chips can be, are specifically designed and the parameters that we are looking at might be a little bit different than theirs.
You said there were 2 papers that were published. What's the biggest breakthrough that's been made that you are going to sort of hang your hat on that's going to differentiate you and have people seek you out?
Sure. So currently we're sort of trying to fight cancer, but we barely understand. We just recently have been able to understand what are the mutations that are driving the cancer, but up to now we were not able to understand what mutations is the immune system able to see, because that's another question on its own, and that sort of like determines how your immune system is going to fight then the cancer. And we were able to analyze and detect what mutations the immune system is able to see and which ones it's fighting.
Please join me in one more round of applause for all 5 Wolff finalists this year. Great work, everybody. So at this point, I'm going to invite the judges to collect your notes and join Tim in a separate area where you can deliberate and make the really tough decision about who walks away with the 2017 Wolff Prize. And while we're doing that, I'm going to first figure out how to reboot this computer, and then introduce several people that we definitely could not run this program without at CCEI. So just bear with me for 2 seconds. This is not my strong point. All right. Fantastic. So as I mentioned, we definitely cannot run this program, our Accelerate UConn program, our CCEI Summer Fellowship program, without tremendous support for both inside the university and the broader community. But first, I would like to invite the School of Business Dean, John Elliott, who's probably our biggest supporter on campus, to come up and say a few words about why this type of educational experience is so important at UConn.
Thank you, Michele. I'll be brief. This is an exciting opportunity for us, and I must say that you should understand that it goes back to, I believe, 1998, when Tom Wolff came to UConn and committed to supporting entrepreneurship at this campus. At the time, it was a young, new idea in some ways. And over the course of the almost 20 years since that time, there's been a transformation at UConn in terms of what's happening across the campus. So today, that beginning, the Wolff Business Plan Competition, has evolved and morphed. 2 years ago, in fact, there were 2 winners because the judges couldn't choose between them. And I know one of those winners is still underway and making progress. The other one I've lost track of. But one of the things that's so exciting for me as the Dean of the School of Business is to see how many organizations have come through a development, identification, evolution, formed as companies, started generating revenue streams, starting making things really happen. And so today, when you look at some of these teams that are up here, you've already heard that they've been through Accelerate UConn. They've been through the summer program that Michele and Tim are conducting with NSF support. Some of them have also been through the Innovation Quest process. Some of them, no doubt, got awards, idea grants back when they were freshmen for a few dollars to help put an idea to work. And one of the goals for us today here at UConn, in the School of Business, in the School of Engineering, in the School of Nursing, wherever it might be, is to invite and engage students very early in thinking about creativity and thinking about innovation. And that may take the form of a hackathon, a 24-hour event in the next generation dorm where they figure out how to solve, I think the last one was reactions to allergies and things of that sort. But the leaders will identify a problem, put a bunch of pizza and a bunch of Coke in front of a bunch of bright young people, and amazing things happen. So it's our belief today that this is the beginning, the mid-stage perhaps, of a real ecosystem in entrepreneurship. I'm so appreciative to the Wolff family, to other donors, to all of the advisors, all of the mentors, all of the judges who help make this system operate and really create an ecosystem that we can and are very proud of. I guess my last observation would just be that one of the things that helps is energy and youth and enthusiasm, and another thing that helps is money. And happily, things like the Wolff competition, the IQ competition, do provide some financial resources to engage people, support people, and help them make progress. And happily, lately, as you may know, Webster Bank, the Connecticut Innovations came together with UConn to each make a contribution of $250,000 to create an annual fund of $750,000 that is available to some of these teams and programs and companies as they move forward through their development stage. And I think they've now got 5 that have been funded in the current year, and more are being evaluated as we go. So thank you for your support. I'm excited at what we're seeing happen in entrepreneurship, and I look forward to seeing who wins this. Thank you, Michele.
There's another group of people that we definitely couldn't operate this program without, and that is two very, very important program sponsors. Update, Kelly, and Spellacy, in addition to providing financial support for this program, have also been with each of these teams every step of the way in the summer fellowship process. Ben Wiles, who we'll hear from in a second, sat down with them way back at the beginning of the summer and said, what do you need? Incorporation documents, partnership agreements, anything else. What do we need to actually get these businesses up and running? And has provided amazing, amazing support. Stuff that without it being provided pro bono, I'm sure would be an obstacle to business formation and progression for these teams. So with that, I'd like to introduce Ben Wiles and offer him a few minutes to offer reflections.
Good afternoon. I just want to say thank you to Michele and Tim for giving me the opportunity to work with these teams and share one thing that Accelerate UConn, I think, has changed in my perception of entrepreneurial activity. I've been involved with entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial incubators for a long time. And I used to think of incubators and accelerators as sort of an additive process, that people needed knowledge and skills and new ideas to help them succeed. But seeing the very diverse group of entrepreneurs that has come through Accelerate UConn this year and last year has changed the way I view it. I think there is also a reductive element that people across a wide range of disciplines, perhaps all of us, have that entrepreneurial spirit within us that just needs to be unlocked. And so the diversity of teams that have been successful, I think, shows the ability of Michele and Tim to do that. And so I'm really privileged to be a part of it. So thank you. Thank you all.
Our second provider of both financial resources and deep expertise is Frank Malone from Fiandella, Malone, and Saracena. Similarly to Ben, he responded to the ask to pitch in and help these teams, most of which have no previous business background at all, understand how to do things like, or understand and develop financial statements, cash flow projections, actually figure out what it's going to take to bring these concepts to market. So Frank, would you like to come up and say a few words?
Thanks, everyone. Michele, thanks very much for the opportunity to be here and just to observe all of what's going on, because I'm a '92 grad, and this wasn't going on in '92. I don't think it was. And I graduated. And just to pick up on what Ben said, 15 years ago, I started my own company. And Michele said, well, why do you guys support this program? Because when I started my firm 15 years ago, there was 3 of us. We needed angel capital. We needed mentorship. We needed, advisors to surround us and just help us attack a market segment that was dominated by 4 key firms, one of which I left. And that, you don't forget that mentorship. The money helps, it definitely helps, but the mentorship, the advising, the people that supported you, you don't forget those people, and those are the people that make you successful. And 15 years ago, that happened for me, and it just drove that passion in me to give it back to whomever I can, and that's why I'm here. So thank you very much, and good luck with everything.
The next 2 people that I want to acknowledge are with me every single week of the CCEI Summer Fellowship. Not only are they entrepreneurs that are running their own businesses, they both decided that a valuable use of one of their entire days of the week would be to come up and provide some mentorship and some subject area expertise to each of our fellows this summer. And we definitely could not pull off this program without them. The first of them is Mario Late, who runs a company. Both of them are actually UConn alums too, which is worth noting. And he left a career in investment banking and finance to start a new company called Terrific Ice Cream that also has deep connections here to UConn. So I'll let you say a little bit more about that, Mario.
Thanks, Michele. Michele asked me, why do you do this? Why do you come once a week or twice a week to participate in the fellowship program? And two reasons that come to mind are, one is a love for the university and a desire to give back. When I first started Terrific Ice Cream, I got free consultation from the production manager at the ice cream, the dairy bar, that helped us kind of formulate our product and launch it. So, the opportunity to give back to the university is something that was something I was very interested in. And I think Michele and Tim, 2 years ago when I came into their office and said, I'm just trying to get involved somehow. And they said, we got a great program we think would be a great fit. The other thing is, I'm just passionate about entrepreneurship. I love speaking to people about entrepreneurship. I love meeting with, burgeoning, new, naive entrepreneurs and kind of giving them encouragement, but also giving them pretty frank and helpful advice along the way. So that's really, why we do it. And I'm glad I'm doing it here against the second year now. And hopefully they'll ask me to come back for next year. Thank you.
And last but not least is Scott Droz. Scott and I were actually contemporaries here at the University of Connecticut as undergrads. We didn't quite connect while we were on campus. As you can imagine, there are a lot of us, right? But I met Scott 2 years ago, and similarly to Mario, he volunteered and said, hey, there's an entrepreneurship center on campus now? How cool. What can I do to help? And I convinced him, once again, that spending a day of the week during the summer away from running his company would be valuable to us. And so I'd like to invite him up to say a few words as well.
Hi, everybody. I first want to say, Michele asked me to reflect on some of the reasons that I wanted to participate. This is my second year in the fellowship. Very similar to Mario, just very, very passionate about entrepreneurship, studying entrepreneurs, studying businesses, looking at organizations and how they're designed, and looking at how entrepreneurship and entrepreneurs are developed. So it just excites me at my core to be around people and be around that energy, because that energy kind of permeates over and it's infectious. So just being around entrepreneurs helps me become a better business leader. Secondly, as a graduate of UConn, of course I want to support the organization, and my partner also attended UConn, so it's very, very much in alignment of our core values, which one of our core values at the organization is teachers before titles. So being able to get back to the university in a teaching capacity is very important as well. And finally, the final reason I'm involved in this program is because of Michele, and I really believe in what she does and the energies that she brings and the types of the grit that she instills in her students and the curriculum she's developed. And I wouldn't get behind a program or a curriculum that I didn't 100% believe in or actually go through myself over the last 15 years. So very much I appreciate being alongside of you and watching what you can do with these students and seeing kind of the progression from when we started a couple months ago to where they are now. It's pretty admirable. So thank you.
Thanks, Scott. I definitely did not pay him to say that, so appreciate the acknowledgement. With that, I think that we are all just playing a little bit of a waiting game now. Tim is leading the process of determining the winner, but until then, I believe the bar is going to be back open. There's more food, so we'll come back to you once a decision has been made. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, we have a winner. Please, Gary and Greg Wolff are going to join me in the presentation. Thank you all for coming. It's a great honor to host you, and congratulations to the teams, and really happy for all the progress you made. Okay, the winner of this year's Wolff Prize and of a $15,000 check is EIR Medical Devices.
Congrats. That was awesome. Thank you very much.
Okay, and I guess we're supposed to take pictures, but I think we have the bar until 6 or something like that. Feel free to drink and hang around. We're going to take some
hold on,
photos.
just one second. We're just going to say, because Tim doesn't get recognition either, Michele got her recognition, which is so well deserved, but we just want you all to know that having Tim Folta involved with our program and the other people here at CCEI is unbelievable, and we just can't thank them enough, and we thank you judges, and we thank you participants. It's been a great day.
I'd just add to that, this was the best set of programs we've had. You guys are outstanding, and really, we wish you much success with your businesses. They're really good.